guys, welcome to the MountMaker 0.8 update video. Sorry it's taken me so long to get here, but I hope the wait was worth it. I got a few new features for y'all. We'll start with the small stuff and work our way through the list of the bigger stuff. I'm going to make a more in-depth tutorial video as well to go along with this for a couple of the features, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Starting from the small stuff. Alright, I know a couple of you run some rather large quads and you were asking for M4 bolts. So M4 is now an option. They are massive, but it's an option now. Cameras. I know the camera was getting kind of annoying for some of you. Now I have plans in the future to kind of further fix this and streamline it. But for now, I have turned off collision checking for it. What that means is it won't clip inside the mount when you're scrolling by and zoom in real stupid like. The downside to this is it also does not check for collisions under the table. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but the way I see it, if you're going this low, you probably don't care if it goes under anyway. Alright, I fixed up the DJI Action 2 mount. I know some of you were having issues with the, especially with the ND filters, you could see the borders of the mount actually on screen. That's definitely not ideal. So I went ahead and basically chopped back the little lens bumper, I guess you could call it. I did this with all of the variants. But I know the one in question was actually this side mount ND filter one. So hopefully that fixes the problem. If you guys are still seeing edges of the mount in your camera view, please let me know. Best way to get a hold of me is through Facebook Messenger on the MountMaker page. I'll respond to that and I see it pretty much immediately. Email works pretty good as well. But yeah, let me know if this fixes the issue or not. I hope it does. I'm happy to rework it again if it doesn't. Moving on. So I started working on the ability to scrub through, change up what we're doing for the bottom mounts there. I'm not fully sure where I'm going to go with that, but I think that the ability to have prefabricated mounts, just like prefab cameras, could be quite handy, especially for some of the really weird drones out there, like the Cinrace 20, which has a mount that's basically impossible to make in this. I'll get to a solution for that soon as well. But for the meantime, I started working on a menu system that I've had a placeholder for a while. The only one I've added so far is the DJI FPV base. So there you have it. This will work with the DJI FPV. It's not too complicated. It takes away a lot of your choices when it comes to what you're going to do with the base, but that's because it's prefabbed. Now you can still change the spacer scale. You can change everything about what happens above the base, but the width and the maximum length are going to be preset on these. But of course you still have all your options. You could throw whatever the heck you want on your DJI FPV now, for example. Moving on, I have added soft mounting. Now I know this was something that you guys had been asking for a while. By the way, thickness will reset down to 0. I'll work on digging that bug out, but if it looks like this, you just move the thickness up. Anyway, so soft mounts. You guys have been asking for it for a while. I have gone ahead and we got a bit of a rudimentary sort of way of doing it so far. It should do the trick though. I was actually testing it this weekend here on a cheap little run cam thumb. But it's got enough wobble in it that it dampens the vibrations. But I find with 95A, it's still stiff enough that you're not getting like crazy jello going on. So far so good. Obviously with heavier cameras, I'm going to need other people to test them for me, see how it all goes. But to show you, it's going to be in the spacer menu. You get your standard solid and split. But now I've gone ahead and we got soft mounts. These can be tweaked quite highly with the spacer settings. So you can squeeze them in, pull them out. you know, all your typical fun stuff. If you add edging, you can add edging. I wouldn't recommend it, but it does exactly kind of what you expect. It's going to add edging to the outside of it, or it used to. Maybe not now, just because of the size. But oh, scale, duh. So yeah, that will happen. Not ideal, but I mean, it's easy enough to just turn it off. So I have a few options for this. Just go through them really quickly. I got full length ones. Not sure how these are gonna do, but I added them just as an option. We got half size, which is what I think most of us are probably gonna use for soft mounting. And of course, yeah, you can squish them down. Soft mount half, soft mount quarter. I added these ones for when your base width is going to be really large, because it does scale based off of base width. It just gives us a few extra options. I'm not sure anybody's going to want to have rings that thin at a small base width, but the option is there, especially for the smaller stuff like the Runcam Thumb and the Insta360. I also added some thick ones. So these ones have a really thick center in them. They'll probably print a lot easier. I got thick full and thick half. Yeah, it's there as an option. It's whatever works best for you kind of situation. And I also added stiff. Oh, there's thick. These are stiff. So stiff mount or stiff spacers are going to be they got less of a curve on them. It's all pretty experimental for me right now, because I don't do a lot of like real steady work or anything like that. So I kind of relying on feedback, need to know which ones really work the best. I'll probably keep them all in, because every camera is a little bit different and the amount of vibrations you get through each drone is going to be different. So it's a really use-based based on what you need it for kind of thing. But these ones are probably going to be quite helpful in certain applications. So, soft mounts. Moving on. The two biggest things that I've done for this update, and they might not seem huge on the outside, but the amount of code work that went into them has taken me a month at least for some of this stuff, and I'm quite happy about it. It's been the most complicated bit of coding I've ever done, and that is this save load button. So we now have full saving ability in MountMaker, and it's not just saving to your system or saving internally, it's saving to a .mnt file that I just made up. This file is shareable just like any STL file or 3D file. It's a file. So it doesn't matter whose MountMaker system this is. It means we can now share mounts between each other without having to export them, which means people can take a setting like a preset and share that. And I have absolutely no problem with these files being shared. It's why I made it. But with the exported files, it's a bit of a different story. Those ones should be just for the user. So this is a good kind of workaround, but also for us when we got one drone with a bunch of different cameras that we're cycling through or making different mounts, experimenting. It's nice to have the ability to just save your presets. So it's in where the old export button was. It now has three options: export, save, and load. For saving, it's pretty simple. Save it. I've done this way too many times. I think I'm on save test 21. Save test 21 it is. Save test 21. Hit save. Done. It's in your system. You can share it. You can move it around. Do whatever. If you go ahead and tweak all this, I'll change the mode over to GoPro bracket or something like that. You can go back in here. You can also, it doesn't rely on the program being open. It's a proper save system. Hit load. Any MNT file will work. So save test 21. Load that up. And here you go. Get your mount back with all your settings saved. Now this extends all the way to imported meshes too, to the point where you don't actually need the mesh that you imported, the original .obj file, you don't need that. So you can import a mesh into MountMaker, tweak it, have it the way you want it, save it, and come back to that specific mesh for further editing, putting it on a different drone, that kind of thing. Means you only have to import something once, and importing being the most finicky part about this, I'm hoping that adds a little bit of convenience. Now, talking about importing, that's the last thing I have here. I've added the ability to import bases. What this means is now you can import both the base and the sleeve and still edit everything in between. I'm hoping this gives us a lot of flexibility when it comes to what we're going to do, especially for something, and I'm using this example again, the Cinerace 20, because of how impossible that mount would be to make in MountMaker. I'm hoping this is an alternative. You find somebody else that designed a really oddly specific mount for you, say like the DJI FPV, which MountMaker could not make properly. You can import that, and you can import any sleeve that you want. All you have to do is slice them, right? So it's pretty much the exact same thing as importing sleeves that we've had before. So weird sleeve 2. Now I did a terrible job of slicing these, so that's a sleeve. I'm looking for bases. What am I doing? Cancel that. This is a glitch too. This is a known bug. It's just not updating when you exit out of the mounts. Just move a slider, I'll come back. Okay, let's try a base. Weird base. Okay, so this is actually for a Cinerace 20. As you can see, there's a bit of an issue with the top of it. The way I sliced it was very poor. That being said, it will still work to show you what's going on here. It's exactly how the regular imports work, except you want get this to 90. You want the top of the mount where the rest of the spacers and everything else is going to align. You want that just over top of this ruler here. And I'm going to make a more in-depth tutorial about how to do all this to go along with this video. So you just get it kind of like that. It doesn't matter if it's over a little bit, it does matter if it's under. You can go up with the spacer, but you can't go down, just to simplify things in the code. But you go ahead and center this, rotate it the way you need, get this to 90, center that, bring the Z up to about there. The center of the ruler is where the center of the spacer is going to go, so about there. Hit import, and this will work just like any other custom base, so like the DJI FPV, except you can go ahead and set thickness, imported base, and there you go. You have your Cinerace 20. As you can see, I didn't properly finish clipping this mesh. Make sure that your mesh does not have see-through parts to it. That's going to cause problems in the 3D printer, but that's just the way I sliced it in Mesh Mixer. You get the idea. So go ahead and you can still change the width of your spacer. It probably helps if it's solid in this scenario. Width, length. The length works kind of like the length does on a standard spacer. What that means is you can change the length, but that's not going to necessarily change the width of this space or the length of the spacer. You need to change scale as well. The only reason that's still the case is because if you want edging, you need to do it separately. Now with some of these mounts, it's going to be a little bit tricky because obviously not everything's meant to work together like in this scenario, right? So you do the best you can. Cut that down. Thickness will elevate this in case you've got way too much clipping going on. If you got not enough, you can set it back down to 0. But you get the idea. And that should about sum everything up. If you got any questions, comments, or suggestions, I'd love to hear them. As always, thanks so much for your continued support with this. I have lots of big things just up the pipeline, and I hope to get another update out pretty soon. I'll probably have a couple revisions for beta 0.8 just because of the complicated nature of it. I expect to see some bug reports pretty quick as soon as I release it here. So yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good one.